Welcome to the It Takes a Village podcast by Village Bank, where we bring leaders with expertise in finance, accounting, entrepreneurship, leadership, and branding into our village to help entrepreneurs like you in our community. As an entrepreneur's bank, we hear all the time that you want to know more about the financial nuances of starting and running a business. These questions are profoundly important and can be incredibly stressful. That's why we're inviting prominent leaders and friends of our village to weigh in and build a village of answers and connections on the It Takes a Village podcast. Thank you for joining us. Today we're talking to Jamie Taets, CEO of Keystone Group International and an expert on weaving culture and strategy together to lead successful businesses. In our current circumstances under the COVID-19 pandemic, we've heard the phrase new normal all too often. But we want to talk about leading into a new normal and how entrepreneurs can lead their businesses into this new normal that we're still trying to figure out.
Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being here. Well, thank you for being there, right?
So yes, right. I'd rather be there, but I know it doesn't work that way.
Exactly. So my first question for you is, how does your leadership experience allow you to plan for a new normal? And what's some of the advice that you're giving to your clients?
Yeah, so the first off, really to define, new normal. I don't think any of us know what that is yet, right, on what it's going to end up being. But the message is really, yes, this is more dramatic than typical change that we go through as leaders, but this is really the time when leaders are going to be born, right? I mean, we've been maybe good before, and this is going to create greatness in a lot of leaders. But where that's going to come from is leaders being authentic and kind of just being human and stripping off all of the thing we thought we had to have up because we had to be the most competent one and have all the answers. There's no leader on the planet right now that has the answers to what we're dealing with. We're taking it a day at a time, a week at a time. And so what I think is helping a lot of leaders and what we're coaching our clients to do is it's helping us be human, right, to our employees and to those people around us, is to be vulnerable about what we don't know, right, and what we're trying to figure out alongside everybody else. It's kind of leveled the playing field where, a leader is hopefully now defined differently in a lot of organizations, is that it's not the person at the top necessarily. It's not even people that have the boxes on the org chart at the top. It's everybody in the organization has an opportunity to lead. And we're hearing amazing stories from our clients about ideas that are coming up through the ranks that are allowing their business to think differently, right? That innovation and that spark of creativity, that's leadership, right? So it's coming from all levels of the organizations. And as true leaders, meaning those at the top, that's our best bet at getting through this, is making sure those people continue to be engaged and that the ideas are coming from that level of the organization who's maybe closer to the customer, right now, as close as we can possibly be. So that's what we're trying to help them think about is how can you show up and be more human, right, and be vulnerable and share your uncertainties, but also share that confidence as well.
Everyone has this new sense of vulnerability, whether it's your family, whether it's technology, but how are we all showing up and being able to extend grace when there's vulnerability?
Correct.
Tell me this. So what question should we be asking right now in how to prepare for what we're calling a new normal? How are you telling clients to prepare for this?
Yeah, so the biggest thing right now, given that we're just in it, right, up to our necks and kind of the unknown, is we call it the light at the end of the tunnel. And so that's what a lot of leaders are struggling with right now, and we have to balance. So as leaders, we have to understand the issues we're dealing with today and tomorrow, right, and help the team solve those obstacles and keep moving. But we were seeing a lot of our clients that were staying in that space. And it's like, you guys, you have to balance short-term with long-term, because you're the only ones that are keeping the light at the end of the tunnel on. And so that long-term strategy, and all we can do is predict for what we know now. And I want every leader to hear that right now, is you can still strategize in times of uncertainty. because what we know now is the direction that we're moving. And if we learn something next week, we have the opportunity to pivot, and we haven't failed because something changed from what we knew last week to this week. But if we don't keep that light on, if we're not thinking strategically and saying, yep, we should still be pointed in this direction as an organization, that's what I'm most scared of for businesses that aren't doing that. And it's hard to sit down, and I just had this with a client last week. What does 3 years look like? And they're like, how can we predict what 3 years looks like? And my answer to them is, if we don't, we're going to end up somewhere that we don't want to be. And so we can look at 3 years, and a month from now, we might need to look at 3 years again. But if we sit here as leaders and just, it's almost like a victim mentality, is we can only think this far out. That's my biggest fear. And so I want people to make sure, even in our personal lives, that we're balancing that short-term focus with still dreaming about where it could be, and dreaming about how could we take this opportunity and get better out the other side, right? The analogy I give for my clients that they love is, when this starts to turn, right? When it starts to get better, we don't know when that is, but we know it will. We know we're going to come out of this. Do you want to be the person that's standing there with your shoes untied? Or do you want to be the person in the organization that's got our shoes tied and we're down in the blocks ready to run? That's the difference. The shoes untied is we're just dealing day to day and trying to survive. Being in the blocks with our shoes tied, ready to sprint when our competition might not be, is what's going to make our 3 year even bigger than maybe we can imagine right now. And so it's making sure that we're paying attention, right, to that long-term view.
Hopefully, businesses have done the planning with someone like you, and they've said, these are our values, this is our vision and our mission, this is our values, this is what we stand for. I know at Village Bank we say we're villagers, and this is what a villager is. And then how now, as the world evolves and the new normal comes about, how is our plan going to evolve? Because we know who we are. We know what we do, we know who we are, but now how do we evolve with that 3-year plan like you suggested?
And not being afraid of evolving, right? And that's what I think you guys do really well, is having that solid foundation. And you give that analogy of pivoting. You've got to have that solid foundation. To me, your strategic plan and your operational, the way you run your business, is your solid foundation. That should allow you to pivot in any direction coming out of this, no matter what happens out of our control. If you have that in place, that's what's going to allow you to make that pivot when you need to. And that might be 6 months from now, it might be 9 months, it might be 18 months. But don't forgo your solid foundation right now. This is the absolute worst time to do that. And because leadership and strategy in times of peace is really easy. But leadership in times of war is an absolute necessity. And we're in war right now. And so doubling down on your leadership and your strategy right now might seem strange, but I truly believe it's what's going to help the top rise above when we come out of all of this. So it's just making sure that you've got that foundation in place.
So what are you anticipating the new normal to look like when we think about what maybe we're in Q2 right now of 2020. What does Q3 look like? What does Q4 and maybe even into 2021? What are some things that business leaders should be thinking about right now?
Yeah, and this is where it's been hard for us. I think for everybody I think the new normal looks a little different, and how fast it comes is by industry. Right, you're really seeing that. You guys are certainly seeing that at Village. Is you're going to see certain industries turn sooner. You're going to see certain industries that maybe have some lagging impacts to this that they aren't feeling right now. And so that's where I think the planning and the reality of just making sure you're bringing your team together to talk about what do we believe right now on what this might look like, not knowing what future federal stimulus packages will look like for capital expenditures, right? I have a lot of clients in the construction industry that are like, we're good right now, but 6 months from now, do we think that capital expenditures will go down, right? And there won't be as much building. And so you're having to predict in that way right now, and do the best that you can, right? And make sure you involve your team. One thing that we are seeing that we know no matter what industry you are in that is going to come to the forefront, that already was, but not at this level, and I know you get this, is culture. And it's not just because I'm a culture junkie, right? And that we help businesses with this. We've been seeing this trend for the last 3 to 5 years. And in the last 18 months, it's like hockey stick, right? You're seeing it more. And this pandemic has taken culture to a whole new level for a lot of organizations. It's taken it from this nebulous concept that we know we're supposed to care about down to the ground of like, holy moly, this really matters, right? When everyone's remote and we're having to connect and perform at a different level, if we had a really, kind of fractured culture to begin with, we're not getting the performance out of our people right now, and we won't into the future. And so all business leaders have to be thinking about, what does that mean for them? And culture is something that's very unique to your business model, to your values, and what's going to work for your competition in terms of culture is not going to work for you. And you have to really double down and decide, what do you want your culture to be, right? What is the vision of that? And that's what's going to drive your new normal. So a lot of our clients are looking at their culture right now really self-reflectively and saying, we thought we were a business that had no flexibility to work from home because we did X, Y, and Z. And they had to find out pretty quickly that that was not true. That was a belief they had that actually isn't proving to be true. Now they've got to figure out where the pendulum swings back to. It's not everybody remote all day, every day, right? They're a manufacturing company and the office people need to be back in the office at some point. But if you have somebody who is, wants to work part-time or wants to maybe do some flex work, and you thought before you never could do it, you can now, right? And what does that new normal look like for that policy and that approach? What does your new normal look like in terms of cross-functional collaboration in your organization, right? All of these pieces of culture that we help companies look at, they're looking at them with a whole new lens. And I truly believe that the idea of strategy being something you need to think about, and then, culture being a separate thing, we're now seeing the intersection of strategy and culture come together because one doesn't happen without the other anymore. And before, I think your strategy could happen even if you had kind of an okay culture. You're not going to have that same success anymore. And so you're seeing businesses like Village that have been doubling down on culture for years. You're going to see them come out the other side. That's truly what I believe. It's going to be a competitive advantage in the new normal to have a strong culture foundation that you're building whatever's next for your company on. And I'm hoping a lot of business leaders start to see that.
If our old culture, the way we used to do things, and now we've got this new way, meaning we're all separated for the most part right now, how do you think that's going to help us with the new normal and how we succeed going forward?
What I think is really the shift that you're going to see is in kind of what I call resiliency in your organization. And the time, again, a silver lining, and it's hard to see where we're at right now, but we're already seeing it with some of our clients. We're seeing it in our own organization, is that true resiliency to change. Because we can get through this crap that we're dealing with right now. You guys, right? Look around at your team and tell them we can get through anything. I literally feel like there's going to be businesses that are like, bring it on. Like, we can weather this storm. We know how we did it. It was tough, right? But that's change. That's what change really is. And so I think what we're going to learn is where we failed in the past and maybe haven't kind of come out of that the way we wanted to, is we're learning every day during this how to come out in a positive way. Because you talk about, kind of what's happened to us and in our purpose is what's happened in most organizations with their purpose. In full transparency, we have clients that aren't yet or weren't before this as connected to a purpose as some of our other clients, right? They truly thought their purpose was the widget or the revenue number. And we've been working with them, and they were starting to kind of get it, but they weren't there. We're now seeing all of that stripped away, where the revenue's not there. You're not going to hit your target this year. And so they have to get over that. And the widget might not be the widget we thought it was. We might have actually had to pivot. And now we're creating PPE equipment, or, right, we're doing something different. And so they've almost broken their attachment to what they thought their purpose was, which wasn't their purpose that we were trying to tell them. And you're seeing them kind of strip away some of that exterior and go, wow, we now know what our purpose is, right? It's deeper. And then we have clients who knew that all along, and all they've done is every single day validated the fact that that was their purpose, right? So their purpose and their foundation got stronger and stronger and stronger, because now it's unbreakable. No one's going to be able to tell me that's not our purpose, because we just showed it, right? And so you're seeing these two different evolutions of companies, but it's what we needed, because the employment landscape, the talent landscape was asking for this. When you look at the generational changes, the next two generations, millennials and Gen Zs, they're not falling for that anymore. They want to they're asking in interviews, what is your purpose? And when you dance around it and they feel like it's not moving them at all, they're seeing through the crap, right? But now businesses are starting to realize, wow, there is a deeper purpose to why we get out of bed every day and come in here and fight the good fight. I think that's going to be the biggest change. And I think that's what's going to create the resiliency to the next crisis that's going to happen, right? Hopefully it's not soon, but we know the next crisis is going to happen, and we can look back and say, we got this. We did this before, right? This is just a new thing that we've got to work through, and they have those things that they can lean on.
We don't know what the long-term strategy is yet on that. We're looking to our government to fix that. We're looking for local businesses to fix that. We're looking for local banks to fix that. We're looking for local leaders like you, Jamie, to have the plan, right? But I think that there is a vulnerability there in not knowing and understanding what it is. But there's also vulnerability in saying, okay, there's this 70% we don't understand or we don't know yet. But there's this 30% that, because we're educated, we're experienced, we can look forward and continue to move and continue to evolve, pivot in the right direction. And, there's a lot of, we all have to, I think it's looking back on your experiences and saying what's been successful in the past, what are the new rules, the new norms that we do know, and how can we now move forward with some of that, right? What do we know will work going forward? Or what does our experience tell us about how finance, government, businesses have reacted? There's a lot out there, and I think it takes people like you. I think it takes villagers out there to help these small businesses and guide them through that. And like you and I have talked about, just listening to their story, listening to what's important to them. That's so important today.
And I think just based on what you're saying too, another thought is, I think we're all now open to hearing other thoughts, other ways, other thinking. And so, for Keystone, one of our just big core values and pushes is that we want to shift your paradigm. And when we say that, people are like, okay, yeah, we get it. But we want to bring other experience. And what about, have you thought about this? Or, turn the lens and have you look at something a little bit different? Because each time we shift our perspective, we get stronger, our organization gets stronger, because our lens is expanding, right? That we look at the world through. And that's an important thing that's happening right now, is you're seeing a lot of businesses say, you know what, there might be someone who can help us through this, or it's worth a discussion, right? To get a different perspective on this. And you guys are seeing it in community banking, but I'm seeing it in a lot of industries where their competitors are coming together to say, how are you guys doing with this, right? And how are you looking at this? It's no longer this like trade secret kind of stuff, because they need to learn from each other. And I think that's really important.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're all in this together, no matter what the name of your bank is, what the name of your business is. We're definitely all in this together, and we're all one. We're all one village right now. Jamie, thank you so much for talking about leading into a new normal with us. And who the heck knows what it's going to look like. But what we do know is we're all going to be there on the other side. And so thank you so much for everything you've shared with us today.
Thanks for joining us on It Takes a Village, hosted by Alicia Webb. If you liked what you heard today and want to hear more, follow us on social media at Village Bank Online on Facebook and Instagram, and Village Banking on Twitter.